And we're back with another video. What's going on, beautiful people? I'm your host, Avery Wright, bringing you your Carolina Panthers post-game review / analysis. Alright, man. So, the Carolina Panthers came down to Raymond James Stadium earlier today, 1 p.m., and they lost again in a 31-17 final score against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ooh boy, I don't I don't even know where to begin with this one. Well, we'll start with the defense. The defense had a lot of issues, man, and the one that was most prominent were those pass interference calls. Holy cow. There were so many. I think as a whole, the team total, as a whole, the team had a lot of penalties. I think they had about 10 penalties. Most of them was coming on the defense. And the defense, at the beginning of the game, they started out well. I mean, they played decently. They played a lot better than I thought they were going to play. But, you know, they just messed up in crucial. It was just stupid mistakes. Like, to be honest with this game, it wasn't even the fact that Tampa Bay won. It was more so Carolina shot themselves in the foot. Now, granted, I'll give certain aspects to Tampa Bay, but for the most part, Carolina was shooting themselves in the foot. So first off, with those defensive PI calls, man, it was, I forget who Brady was throwing to. I think he was throwing to Godwin or one of the other receivers, and Dante Jackson gets a PI call. Like, the ball was nowhere even close to the receiver, and yet Dante has his hands all over the man. And I'm just like, bro, Dante, man, what are you doing? Dante Jackson has been struggling for the past 2 years. I mean, he had a decent rookie year, but I don't know, man. Like, he is a track guy, but I don't know. Because at this point, the brother just keeps getting beat. I think he should have thought about becoming a track star instead of an NFL player. That's all I'm going to say. And then, of course, I will say this. I was wrong about Tahir Whitehead. I thought he was going to get at least 3 PI calls, but he only got 1, which is still bad. He got 1. And then the stupid penalty on the rookie Derek Brown. I think it was against Ronald Jones. He was running the ball, and no, they stopped him, and then Derek Brown. No, that's not what it was. The play was Brady threw the ball to some receiver, and he had already got hit, and then after he came down, like he was down on the ground, and here comes Derek Brown doing a late hit. He could have injured the man. You're about 300-something pounds falling on a little wide receiver. Bro, they're going to call that every time. It was just a stupid mistake. It would have been 3rd and short, but that was a 15-yard penalty. It's just ridiculous, man. But that's enough about that. I mean, and then that Fournette play, that sealed the deal. Oh, my goodness. That was just poor run defense right there. And still keeping on the subject of the defense, this Carolina Panthers defense has now played a total of 8 quarters. Okay? And they have 0 sacks and 0 hits on the opposing quarterback. Yes, I said it. 0 sacks, but more, that should be highlighted. 0 QB hits at all. They have not touched Derek. They didn't touch Derek Carr that last week. And they didn't touch Tom Brady this week at all. That's just atrocious. Even for this team that's not the best defense in the league, but still, it's ridiculous. You can't even get quarterback hits. Like, Brady and Carr weren't even under duress at all. And that was one of my key factors, that this defense, this front seven, that this organization worked so hard to develop and draft players for, aren't getting any pressure. Like, the pressure is non-existent. Like, Derek Carr and Tom Brady are able to just sit back there in the pocket. They can make a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, sit down and eat a snack back there with all the time that this Carolina defense has been given them. And that all falls on the defensive coordinator, Snow. I don't know what the heck that man is doing, but it isn't working. It really isn't working. I don't even know what to say. And like, well, the run defense was also pretty bad today. We didn't have Kawan Short. Kawan Short is usually a pretty good run stopper. I don't even know what his injury was, but it was very apparent that we was missing him on that Fournette play. But besides that, the run defense for Carolina, besides that huge Fournette play, the run defense wasn't really that bad. I mean, yes, you know that they had that big run with Fournette. Fournette had 12 carries, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the rest of the running backs, like Ronald Jones, only had maybe about 20 yards, and the rest of everyone else who rushed had like under 10 yards. But still, that's still unacceptable for Leonard Fournette. But kudos to him, man. He looks like he's been revived over here in Tampa Bay. He went from one Florida team to the other, and hopefully the brother does well with Tampa Bay. And he has Tom Brady as his quarterback. And that's another thing why I think the Panthers shot themselves in the foot. Brady didn't even play his best game at all. By far, he's still trying to get used to this new system that Bruce Arians has him in. But the playbook this week compared to last week against the Saints was more New England and Tom Brady-esque, especially with Mike Evans. And like I said in the review, that Mike Evans only had 2 yards last week. You know Brady was going to give that man the ball. And boy, did he ever. Dante Jackson was getting worked back there in the secondary. In the words of Shaquille O'Neal, he was like barbecue chicken. Forget that. He was barbecue chicken, macaroni and cheese, ribs, the baked bean. He was the whole plate at your local family cookout, man. Dante Jackson. I'm surprised they didn't even try to double Mike Evans. That man, Mike Evans, had 7 receptions and 104 yards, 1 touchdown. I will say this. Brady's chemistry with the rest of his wide receivers are still off, and he overthrew and underthrew a lot of receivers today. Carolina got really, really lucky. To be honest, New England should have won this game like 48-17. But because Brady's still trying to get used to the system and get the chemistry together, they didn't really have that. They still put up 31 points, obviously, but it should have been more. But even though Brady's chemistry is still off with the rest of his receiving core, it looks like he's finally found his stride with Mike Evans. And I don't know why I did not start Mike Evans this week on my fantasy team. I'm very upset. I should have started Tampa Bay's defense too, because they were just fast, man. That's what happened. Shout out to Todd Bowles, man. Like I said in the preview, Todd Bowles is one heck of a defensive coordinator, and them boys on that Tampa Bay defense have speed. I mean, our offensive line was just poor, man, and there's only so much you can do. That defense was just feasting out there. I think Teddy got sacked maybe about 3-4 times. They were just getting beat. And I don't know how you, as an organization, expect Teddy Bridgewater to do well, who has a few injuries dating back to his time when he was at Louisville. And it was one of the sacks. I forgot who sacked him. But as soon as Teddy got up, he was limping a little bit. So that's not really a good sign right there. You know, we were lucky for 9 years to have a big, like, bulky quarterback like Cam that could take hits. Teddy can't take hits like Cam. If he gets, like, hit stick by a linebacker or something, Teddy could be out like a light, and we don't want that to happen. So this offensive line has got to get it together, man. And again, kudos to the defense of Tampa Bay. This is the first time Christian McCaffrey got over 50 yards on Tampa Bay since 2017, I think. Christian, he had a decent day, but still he had 2 touchdowns, 18 carries, 59 yards. They still did a good job of bottling Christian up. And then on that second touchdown, he injured his ankle. So that's not a good sign. Again, Christian McCaffrey kind of carried this offense. Him and Robbie Anderson, I will say Robbie Anderson was a really good find for Carolina this year. A good pickup. Robbie Anderson, he balled out again today. 9 receptions, 109 yards. And kudos to DJ Moore, who I'm really high on, man. 8 receptions. He led the receivers in yards. Robbie Anderson led them in receptions. DJ Moore had 8 receptions and 120 yards. So good job for DJ today. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. But it's starting to become a growing concern to me about Curtis Samuel. I've been really high on Curtis Samuel since we got him from Ohio State. But it's becoming a growing consensus that Ron Rivera didn't know how to use Curtis Samuel. And now Matt Rule and Joe Brady don't really know how to use Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel is a dynamic wide receiver. And I guarantee you, if you put him on someone, put him up in New England up there with Edelman and Cam. And I guarantee you, Kirk would be going nuts. We saw glimpses last year, especially in that London game against Tampa Bay where Kyle Allen was throwing it to him. But mostly people, they just keep using him for ending the rounds, jet sweeps. Yes, I know he's a speedy guy, but he can still catch the ball. He's a deep threat. You can use him on the other side of Robbie Anderson. He can go vertical. But they just don't know how to use the man. It's just crazy. But with CMC coming out and being injured, at least we got to see a little glimpse of Mike Davis. He didn't really run the ball all that much. They did a lot of check down. Teddy did a lot of check down passes to him. He had 7 receptions for 74 yards. And hey, even though Mike Davis didn't play a lot, he did all he could do, man. He was just out there just doing his part. That's really all you can ask for. And lastly, we will get to the quarterback, Mr. Bridgewater himself. Now, I'm not saying this loss was totally on him. It wasn't. But he has about half of the blame here. You can't have 3 turnovers as a quarterback in any game. But especially if you know that your defense is very young and inexperienced and you have a really bad offensive coordinator who just tells them to go out there, who said that he doesn't like scheming and just wants them to go out there and play. What kind of stupid crap is that? I've never heard anything like that from a defensive coordinator in my life. That's just ridiculous. But again, if you know your defense is inexperienced and you have a terrible defensive coordinator that's telling your defense to do things like that, you can't win when you're having turnovers. Yes, I understand Teddy Bridgewater is still getting used to this system, still getting used to his receivers, but those turnovers he had were inexcusable. That first one, it was a screen pass to Christian McCaffrey, and he overthrew him by a mile, and it was picked off. The next drive after that, when we get the ball back, he gets strip sacked. You got to be able to hang on to the ball. And then the second interception is when he threw the ball behind DJ Moore and he got picked. You can't do that. You really can't. And you know, I've seen a lot of people that were coming to Teddy's aid, but let's be real. I hate using this scenario, but I have to use it. If Cam Newton was the one who was throwing those interceptions, every Panthers fan on social media would want Cam's head cut off. But since it's Teddy, they're like, oh, he's still getting used to the system. I mean, yes, he is, but you're still a veteran quarterback. You can't be missing easy wide receivers. Halfback screens. Halfback screens. You learned that in backyard football when you outside playing with your boys. In elementary school at recess. How do you overthrow on a halfback screen? Now, yes, I can. Now, the other one, I'm gonna be a little bit more lenient on. You threw behind DJ Moore. The chemistry still isn't there yet between you and DJ. And we saw that a lot last week against Derek Carr and the Raiders. But that strip sack, if you're going to take off running, you have to be able to hold on to the ball. You have to. At least wrap up. You can't run with one hand on the ball. You have to be able to wrap up or tuck it up under your arm or something. You know someone's going to come and try and punch it out or strip it out of your hand. It's just ridiculous. You know, all in all, it was it was very lucky for Carolina to even be in this game. Heck, it was 21-0 at halftime. At that point, I was just like, oh, Lord, here we go. The 50 piece I was talking about earlier this week is going to be dropped on Carolina. But it didn't happen. So I'm going to say this again, and I'll probably be saying this for the rest of these post-game reviews. I will give the defense some credit for sticking to their guns. Because even though the offense was getting shut out 21-0 and turning the ball over, the defense was bending, but they weren't breaking. They were breaking at times, but in that second half, they did a lot better. You know, except for those certain PI calls that just kept giving Tom Brady, and you can't give an experienced quarterback easy first downs with all those pass interference calls. That's just terrible discipline by that defense, especially when you're playing up against a Hall of Fame quarterback in Tom Brady. Yes, who's still learning the system over there in Tampa Bay, but you're giving him more time to learn the system, which gives him more opportunities to put points on the board and to help that team win. You can't do that. You just can't do that. But like I said, I'll give them credit because, again, if they were the 2019 Carolina Panthers, the Patriots would have won that game probably 50-0. Because that defense, the defense of last year would have just gave up. This defense this year, at least they're playing with some heart. They keep getting punched in the mouth, for sure. And I expect it to be like that all season. But they'll show glimpses. They really will show glimpses of being able to, like this defense, they're gonna bend, almost break. You know, it's like when you're breaking a stick in half, but the stick, it has a little crack in it when it's still put together after you kind of broken it. Like one little piece, like one little strand of bark is still hanging on, just not trying to allow that branch to break. That's what the Carolina Panthers defense is going to be like all year long. So to make up for that, this offense has to be better. They have to. Robbie Anderson, again, he's been playing phenomenal in these past 2 weeks, and he's just been balling. DJ Moore, he played well. I mean, he played decently last week. This week he played well. They need to get Curtis Samuel more involved on offense, and the tight ends, Chris Manhertz and Ian Thomas. I don't know. They don't even use them in the passing game, but I don't know. And we still don't even have a status for McCaffrey. We don't even know if he's gonna play against LA next week. We'll see, and that'll be really interesting. If we don't have McCaffrey, then you already know. Like I said, he drives this offense. He's the workhorse. If we don't have McCaffrey next week, it's really gonna be hard taking on the Chargers. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot. Like I said, you can expect this defense to keep letting the points pile up like that. They probably will be letting teams score 30 pieces on them almost every game. And the offense just needs to be able to come out and do their thing. That's the only thing we can hope. But the thing is, Teddy Bridgewater basically has to be perfect on offense. Not only that, but the offensive line has got to be better. I mean, they showed glimpses in that second half when Teddy Bridgewater, who was finally throwing the ball downfield, the ball still looked wobbly, but hey, at least he's throwing the ball downfield, and Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore are catching him. That's all we can ask for. Completed passes downfield. But it's just that these past 2 weeks, the Panthers have been playing catch up. There hasn't been a game where we've been leading. I mean, they led in the Oakland game, but it was a slim lead. They've never really had a comfortable lead. If they've had a comfortable lead, it's only been for a drive. So, I don't know. They just got to figure things out. And the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll get out of here. I don't really... The play calling is just baffles me by Matt Rule sometimes. I mean, on 4th and 3, you do a fake punt where you could have just given it to McCaffrey, who probably would have gotten those 3 yards. And then you try an onside kick. And mind you, that was Gronk's only catch of that day, was that onside kick recovery. Other than that, Gronk didn't catch anything at all. Truthfully, I think he's washed. But again, he might still just be getting used to the system too. I understand Matt Rule is trying to take risks, but Rule, my man, you got to understand, this isn't college anymore, buddy. This isn't Temple. This isn't Baylor. This isn't the NCAA. This is the NFL. You got to be smarter sometimes. I know you're still learning, but it's a process. That's the whole thing with this Matt Rule, the Matt Rule era, is it's a process. And, you know, you look at where he was at Temple. They didn't just get great right away. It took about a year or two for them to get good at Temple, and that first year they were horrendous. Even when he was at my favorite collegiate football team school, the Baylor Bears. The first year he came, Baylor was just atrocious. But the next 2 years, they were straight. Especially that last year when they went to the Sugar Bowl. That was the breakout year. So it's going to be a process, man. It's probably like with Ron Rivera, because you remember it wasn't all peaches and cream when we first started out with Cam and Ron. You know, that first year we went 6-10, and it low key reminds me of the offense of this year. I mean, the team of this year. That offense led by Cam Newton in 2011. They were decent, but they could put up the points. The defense was just giving up so much, and that's what this 2020 team reminds me of. The offense can put up points. We have great skills players, but the defense is going to give up a lot of points. So, you know, it's a process, and just got to trust the process, and we'll see what happens. And that's all I have for you guys today. Next week, we will be taking on the LA Chargers and the rookie quarterback out of Oregon, Josh Hubert. I mean, Tyrod Taylor might... who am I kidding? Tyrod Taylor's not going to play next week. The way how Justin played today in the loss against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, my goodness. I think LA has found their quarterback of the future, and we'll probably get him this weekend. He threw for almost 400 yards, so he might go crazy on this Carolina defense, but we'll see. That preview will be up sometime later this week, and this is Avery Wright signing out. Y'all be blessed, and y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Peace.